It's less about what Apple says today and more about how it's positioning its software and services business. I mean, we think about this event, and typically these are big, massive events for Apple where you get a chance to take a look at its business and see where it's going. But these are fairly underwhelming upgrades to the iPhone. I mean, the biggest thing is that there's going to be a smaller notch at the top of your screen. I don't know anyone who's going to upgrade because the notch is a little bit smaller. So it's really about, for Apple, in terms of moving the needle, it's about how do they make more money from the existing customers through a software and services business. And that's why I think it's kind of fascinating that we just had the epic ruling last week where we see a hit to Apple as Apple's software and services business. That to me is sort of the headline coming in. It's something inescapable. It's going to be looming over this event. But as for the phones themselves, I mean, we all know what's coming. And it's not a massive improvement. We used to look forward to these events. They were, massive leaps in technology. Now they're more refinement events.
So if it is the case that that's going to be what investors are kind of looking a little bit more at, what exactly needs to happen for Apple? What can they say about new software updates coming up or about that services business that gets people excited? We know that Apple has been trying to move that narrative towards that kind of services side of the business, the margins as well. What exactly can we expect on that side of things? Any big releases on that front?
I don't think there's going to be any big releases on that front today. We do know that last year, 235 million people bought new iPhones. So if you're an investor thinking about what it's going to look like in the future, you got to be pretty happy with that number. Apple already has 700 million people who are subscribed through its devices. So, it has that base. And now the question is, how does it grow that base over time? Honestly, you got a new iPhone, whether it's people buying last year or some of the people who are going to follow along this year. Those are ripe targets for Apple to continue to extract money and grow those higher margin businesses. So for Apple, this is more of a stay the course moment. I don't think you're going to see any of the wow moments that you're used to seeing in the past. And honestly, maybe that's fine for the company's business. It's what it's looking at. It's where it's positioned itself toward. And I think we should get used to the fact that these Apple release events, aren't going to be as exciting as they've been in the past. And for Apple's business, that might just be totally okay.
If it's totally okay, I mean, and there's no doubt, I mean, as a mature company, it has to kind of face different hurdles coming up. We know that these product events haven't led to blockbuster stock moves to the up or downside, although predominantly in recent memory, recent quarters, it's been to the downside. What exactly then is the larger macro catalyst? What does Apple need to tell investors over the next several quarters to keep this momentum going, to keep it the biggest company out there in history?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it needs to show that it's growing that small base of services revenue. So we're talking about, a few billion, and it's still, I mean, put that alone, it's a massive company. So give Apple credit there. But Apple's been telling us that that's where it's moving. And so if that's where it's moving, then we should see some growth. And I think that as it continues to show growth, it's going to obviously have to fend off more of these legal challenges. I mean, Epic was the first. And it already dealt Apple a setback, although Apple, could claim that it won. What are we going to see come down the pike next? I think that's really important. And of course, I don't want to minimize the fact that device sales are going to be super important to this company. I mean, iPhone revenue is already maintains half of Apple's revenue, and I think that's going to be crucial. So I do think it's still a foundational part of the business. It's just going to be less exciting. And again, it's going to be all about growing the pie and showing those higher numbers on the services. Business and the software side is going to be super important for Apple.